providing financial straight talk for those working and enjoying life after work. This is America's financial headquarters.
We have a question here from Leo. He's listening in the Lansing, Michigan area. That's off of WJIM 1240, known as the Big Talker. Here's Leo.
My question is, I have a 401k, and I'm planning on retiring soon. And I also have $500,000 retirement that I can roll over. But I heard on your program about the 401k that people are not investing it or not doing it right, and you had some kind of a booklet. I would like to have that, please. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye.
The booklet that Leo is referring to is one of the free reports that you can get online at financialhq.com. The title of that is The 9 Mistakes to Avoid with Your 401k Rollover. Again, 9 Mistakes to Avoid with Your 401k Rollover. And you can get that by clicking very easily on financialhq.com. Mark, based on kind of the generic way that Leo posed that, maybe one of the things you could begin by answering for him is how you can take a look at executing a rollover instead of a direct transfer. I'm guessing that Leo, as well as others, are probably confused on the differences.
Yeah, there's a lot of things to think about when it comes to the 401k, and I guess I want to back you up because we're gonna discuss two of the major mistakes that we see made in the 401k rollover side of things, but I'm not certain if Leo's still wrestling with the management side of things or if he's in a rollover mode. But either way, I wanted to address on the management side, I wanted to share basically some investing maxims to live by, for lack of a better term. So if you are still in your 401k and you're wrestling with how to manage some of that, I want to share some of the general rules and schools of thought in terms of how to approach that.
Sure, things to keep in mind.
And I actually added one in light of our previous conversation. Don't get sucked into media hype. Don't let the headlines drive all of your investing decisions. Those are designed, they're there to play on your emotions a little bit. That's ultimately what the media is trying to do. So don't get sucked into that media hype in terms of making your investments. The next one is going to be to buy low, sell high. Seems pretty simple, right?
We've all heard that, right? It's hard to do in real practice, though, for some folks.
Right. Now, even more important than that is kind of our underlying philosophy to America's Financial Headquarters: plan first, invest second. Plan out your retirement. Look through all of the investments. Articulate what your plan is going to be, before you make, your investment decisions.
Yeah, the investments themselves are like tools in a toolbox. You have to know what the blueprint is and what the project is all about, and you have to plan that out first. Then you can reach into the toolbox. Then you can go and invest second.
The next thing that I want to hit on is to know what is an acceptable level of risk for you. Now, a lot of our listening audience may be familiar with deer season. We're in the middle of it right now. And I have a 20-minute drive home to work, Mike. And I tend to, I have the back road drive. And right now is the most risky time for me to be taking my back road drive. However, I was thinking about this the other day as I was driving home. Normally, I zip down my back roads about 50 to 5 miles an hour without much problem. This is the time of year where I proceed with caution. And I proceed with caution regardless of whether I've seen a deer or not. So I think, there are 3 different types of investors out there. It's the same kind of 3 different types of people and how they approach driving on the road during deer season here. They're the people that barrel through and just hope that they don't dice a deer and run into a deer. Then there's, those that once they see a deer, they slow down and proceed with caution and look for the others to be following. And then those that are always cautious. So understand what level of risk you're willing to take on, and understand what's acceptable for you. As you're getting closer and closer to retirement, slow it down. Taper back your risk. There's no sense having 90%, 100% of your assets sitting in the stock market with direct market risk. So that's one of the other things. Have a purpose for your investment. Knowing when you're going to take action, whether or not it's to buy more, to sell something, have a purpose and have an intent for how you approach your 401k.
My name's Mike Walters, and this is Mark Mersman sharing a lot of good information with us here. We've actually been springboarding off of a question from Leo in the Lansing area about his 401k. And if you would like to learn more about your 401k, you can go to financialhq.com, and with a couple of clicks, you can download a report titled 9 Mistakes to Avoid with Your 401k Rollover. And Mark's just been starting to share some of the maxims, as we call them, to live by in terms of your investing and how that works within your 401k.
One of the things that we also wanted to share, Mike, is we look at two mistakes that are commonly made. The first is executing a rollover instead of a direct transfer. And basically what a rollover is you can have the company send you a check. Now, unfortunately, whether you even know it or not, that check is usually made payable to you, and then you can send the new company where you want to, put your money or roll your 401k over into an IRA, you send them the money. The problem with a rollover is that they mandatorily have to take 20% off the top.
They have to assume you're not going to actually reinvest that money.
That's exactly right. So you're now behind the 8 ball because you have to try and get that other 20% that they withheld for taxes back into that. It's kind of a cracked egg at that point. So you're trying to put the yolk and the egg back into it, but that shell has been cracked. So that's why we want to execute a direct transfer where you can have your 401k plan send a check directly to the new IRA provider.
That way you don't physically get access to it, so they don't have to withhold those taxes. They know that you're not going to take the money and run, so to speak, so therefore they can send 100% of that over to the new provider, the new investment house.
We see this mistake made quite often, and unfortunately, oftentimes it's not caught until year end when it becomes tax time, and all of a sudden that client gets a 1099 and they're sitting there saying, wait a second,
what just happened?
I didn't mean to do that. I meant to roll it all over, and I didn't mean to start taking distributions. Well, they're assuming that you've taken 100% distribution, so they're going to take that 20% off the top. So be careful of that. That's a common mistake. We outline in a little bit more detail in that report exactly what to do and how to approach that. We share with you exactly the way to title that. So if you are going to make that transfer, make sure that you title it in a certain way and that that paperwork is filled out correctly.
Have to be very specific to get it right.
That's exactly right. The next biggest thing that we see as a challenge is what I refer to as the company stock monster. And there's two major concerns with the company stock monster. A lot of people, they've put years and years into working at a company, and if it's a large enough company, there may be an incentive for that company to encourage you to buy their company stock inside of your 401k. Now, I encourage people to not get too emotionally tied to that company in that particular stock, because the biggest concern that we'll see there's an overweighting issue. We've seen instances where a client's had 50% of their portfolio tied into one particular company in their stock.
And sometimes it's not even the company who's encouraging that. It's just that you're working there, you have an emotional attachment to it, as you mentioned, and you tend to gather more and more of that corporate stock,
right,
because you're there every day and you're wearing those colors, if you will. That's the team you're playing for. My in-laws did exactly that with Procter & Gamble. They ended up literally having almost all of their eggs in the Procter & Gamble basket in terms of the stock within their plan.
Yeah, and that's a dangerous thing. We saw that happen with Enron employees years ago. And that really bit a lot of people in the tail. So just be very careful with that. The next item as it relates to company stock is referred to as NUA. It stands for net unrealized appreciation. This is the big one. If you own company stock inside of your 401k, you have to be very careful with it, because there may be certain tax advantages that you can get as a result of owning that company stock inside of your 401k. So here's basically how it works. In a nutshell, Mike, what you can do with net unrealized appreciation is you can take the gains inside of your 401k, and before you transfer that to an IRA, it has to go into a brokerage account. What this affords you to do is the ability to pay taxes at a long-term capital gains rate rather than ordinary income tax rates, which is what you would normally pay if you had transferred it to an IRA and then taken income from it. There's a lot more detail in the report, and you can get it at financialhq.com.